universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. What is Benjamin Netanyahu's next target? As the situation in West Asia spirals out of control, what lies ahead for the region? That's our top story tonight as we decode the latest. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. Bangladesh minorities continue to be under attack. We get you the latest from on the ground and why the situation is extremely concerning. The second phase of voting is scheduled to begin in Jammu and Kashmir on Wednesday. We get you a special ground report. In India, the principal of a government-run primary school has been arrested for allegedly killing a 6-year-old girl after she resisted his attempt to sexually molest her. All this and more coming up tonight. West Asia has become a modern-day nightmare. On Tuesday, Israel struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon and vowed to keep up intense pressure on its enemy. It is Israel's most ferocious assault on Hezbollah and its most violent exchange with the Lebanon-based group since 2006. On Tuesday, an Israeli airstrike on the southern suburbs of Beirut reportedly killed a Hezbollah commander who was a leading figure in its rocket division. According to news agency Reuters, the commander has been identified as Ibrahim Kobesi. The attack, in which 6 people were killed, dealt another blow to Hezbollah, the Iran-backed group which has faced a series of setbacks at the hands of Israel over the past 1 week. The relentless pressure on Hezbollah has increased fears. Will the conflict explode into another all-out war? One that can destabilize the entire region at a time when war between Israel and Hezbollah ally Hamas is already raging in Gaza. Just have a look at the visuals on your screen. Israel and Hezbollah continue to exchange fire today. Israeli jets carried out targeted strikes on Beirut as the death toll from the attacks on Lebanon increased. In Dahiyeh, the southern suburbs of Beirut, Israel carried out an airstrike on Tuesday afternoon for a second day in a row and third time this week. Israel had struck Lebanon's capital city. In fact, reports said that a Hezbollah leader was targeted by the Israeli strike. The strike hit the top floor of an apartment building in the Guberi neighborhood. Videos and pictures of the strike showed a collapsed roof with a large smoke cloud billowing from it. This was a day after Israel targeted the third in command of Hezbollah's military wing, Ali Karaki. Hezbollah said in a statement that Karaki had survived the blast. Overnight, Israeli military had struck dozens of Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. That was a day after Lebanon witnessed its deadliest day in decades as Israel launched a wave of airstrikes against Hezbollah sites. The Israeli strikes came after Israel's chief of staff was quoted by Israeli army radio as saying, "We will speed up operations against Hezbollah today," quote unquote. The cross-border exchange of fire has increased fears of an all-out war in West Asia. On the other side of the border, Hezbollah said it had attacked several Israeli military targets, including an explosives factory located 60 kilometers into Israel. Hezbollah attacked Israel with Fadi series of rockets. You see, after almost a year of the war against Hamas in Gaza on its southern border, Israel is shifting its focus to the northern frontier, where Hezbollah has been firing rockets into Israel in support of its ally Hamas. The Israeli military said it struck a Hezbollah militant cell. Its artillery and tanks hit other Hezbollah targets in the south. Meanwhile, the police in northern Israel said fragments of interceptor missiles were found in various areas. Lebanese authorities said Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon on Monday had killed nearly 500 people and sent tens of thousands fleeing for safety. Amid the cross-border firing, Israel's military chief said Hezbollah must not be given a break. He said that the attacks on the Iran-backed group would be accelerated. According to the Lebanon Health Ministry, deaths from Israeli strikes on Lebanon since Monday reached 558.
Up until this moment, the Ministry of Health has recorded 558 martyrs, amongst them 50 children and 94 women. And this honestly contradicts all the lies that the Israeli enemy has said, that they target militants and other talk. In all honesty and unfortunately, we are seeing that the majority of, if not all, that have fallen due to the attacks that took place yesterday are from residents who were in their homes.
The situation is alarming, to say the least. The way things stand right now, the entire region is increasingly on edge. Over 30 international flights to and from Beirut have been cancelled today. Airlines affected included Qatar Airways, Turkish Airways, and some from the UAE. And what's more, Lebanese hospitals are overwhelmed by the number of those injured. Haifa's main hospital has moved operations to an underground facility after the Israeli city was attacked on Monday. We are looking at tens of thousands of displaced in Lebanon. But the UN expects that those figures will start to rise. That has the world on edge. Calls for diplomacy are growing as the conflict worsens, with the UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk urging all states and actors with influence to avert any further escalation in Lebanon. Speaking during a briefing in Geneva, the UN Rights Chief said, and asked rather, have we not learned anything from what has been happening in Gaza over the past year?
The methods and means of warfare that are being used raise serious concerns about whether this is compliant with international humanitarian law. The fact that there is a large number of casualties and a large number of injuries, large number of displacement, some civilian facilities also that have been hit, raises serious questions about compliance with international human rights and humanitarian law.
And amid the war in Ukraine, Russia is also weighing in on the West Asia situation. Moscow has warned that Israeli strikes on Lebanon could completely destabilize the oil-producing region of the world. China also said it was highly concerned about tensions between Lebanon and Israel and called on relevant parties to immediately ease the situation to prevent further escalation of a regional conflict. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, called the escalation between Israel and Hezbollah almost a full-fledged war.
The catastrophe continues. And escalation in Lebanon is extremely dangerous and worrying. I was in Lebanon some days before, just before the explosion of these electronic devices has been creating terror among the Lebanese population. Escalation is extremely dangerous and worrying. I can say that we are almost in a full-fledged war.
In fact, Borrell said efforts to reduce tensions were ongoing, but Europe's worst fears about a spillover were becoming a reality. But the fighting has also raised fears that the US, Israel's closest ally in the war, could be dragged into a direct war with Iran. Iran, which is the regional power, has proxies across West Asia, remember, Hezbollah and Hamas being two of them. Nonetheless, the Israeli strikes have piled pressure on Hezbollah, which last week suffered heavy losses when thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies used for communication by its members started exploding. Those attacks last week have been described by Hezbollah as the worst security breach in the group's history. Israel neither confirmed nor denied responsibility for the attack, but the operation has been widely attributed to it. After all, Israel's Mossad has a long history of sophisticated attacks on foreign soil. On Tuesday, Hezbollah's media office said that Israel was dropping leaflets with a very dangerous barcode on them onto Lebanon's eastern Bekaa Valley. That's what they said. The leaflets came with a warning that scanning the barcode on it by a phone would withdraw all information from any device. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military, and Hezbollah's media office did not really say if anything else was written on the flyers. Sure, Israel's intelligence and technological prowess has given it an edge in both Lebanon and Gaza. It has been able to track down and assassinate top Hezbollah leaders and Hamas leaders. In fact, on Tuesday, Israel's military said about 55 projectiles had crossed into Israel, but majority were intercepted. But what really is Netanyahu's next step? Israel's potential options could include invading southern Lebanon. It could broaden the airstrikes to hit more of the Hezbollah-controlled suburbs of Beirut, including bridges and highways and the Beirut airport. It was struck in the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war. All these are options for Israel. Will it double down and risk a larger conflagration is the question. But what is clear is that Israel's widening of the war also shows a significant widening of the breach between US President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. For a year now, Biden has warned publicly and privately about the need to avoid a regional war, a war that could easily escalate into direct conflict between Israel and Iran. In fact, Biden's caution to Netanyahu was a major topic of conversation when he traveled to Israel days after the October 7 attack by Hamas. Just to be sure, Biden even hoped for a transformative peace deal for West Asia that he thought was within grasp a year ago. But now a lot has changed. That dream seems distant. With only 4 months left in office, the chances of Biden actually securing a ceasefire and hostage deal with Hamas look increasingly dim. Today, the risk of a wider war has never looked greater. If Israel invades southern Lebanon, Hezbollah would likely be a more formidable foe for Israel than Hamas. Created in 1982 by Iran's Revolutionary Guards to counter the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, Hezbollah is probably the strongest and most formidable of Iran's proxy groups. It has vast experience, it's highly disciplined, and possesses better weaponry than Hamas. Israel, in fact, faces public pressure to secure its northern border and safely return the residents there. And with Hezbollah vowing to keep fighting until the nearly 1-year war ends in Gaza, it looks like the stage is set for a long conflict. It has been more than 6 weeks since Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was forced to flee the country amid a wave of protests against her and her ruling party, the Awami League, over a reservation bill. The time since then to today is less than 2 months, a time period usually considered to be a small sample size. Cricket leagues like the IPL last longer than that. But in the case of Bangladesh, that is an exception and a major one. The narrative coming out of the country has been consistent. Minorities, especially the Hindu community, have become a regular target in the post-Hasina era. We are not the ones saying this. Reports from Bangladesh tell us this. The reality on the ground could be a lot more grave, compelling many to ask, is it time for India to take a tougher stance on crimes against Hindus in Bangladesh? A question that is now being asked by several people in the country. A case in point is Pradyot Deb Burma, founder of a regional party in Tripura, a state that is bordered by 3 sides by Bangladesh. Deb Burma on Monday reportedly called for India to take a tougher stance against Bangladesh due to the wave of attacks against minorities. As per reports, Deb Burma also said that India should raise this issue with the United Nations and expose Bangladesh for the attacks and harassment against the minorities. So why is Deb Burma saying this? In Bangladesh, there are multiple reports of widespread looting of Hindu houses and shops, vandalism of temples. We've been telling you about this. Various cases of sexual violence, lynching, killings, abductions against Hindus. There are rumors of hospitals allegedly refusing treatment to Hindu patients. Can you believe that? Such is the scale of the attacks that in at least 48 of Bangladesh's 64 districts, there have been reports of incidents against Hindus. That is 75% of the entire country, and this crisis is far from over. Sectarian violence, sparked by the lynching of a Bengali man last week, reportedly displaced many ethnic families after their homes and businesses were set on fire in Chittagong Hill tracts, bordering Myanmar and northeast India. At least 4 people lost their lives. Dozens were injured in subsequent clashes. The incident also prompted a students' association to hold a rally in Tripura's capital, Agartala, as a mark of protest. They reportedly raised slogans condemning escalating attacks, arson and killings, and called for the Indian government to downgrade its diplomatic ties with Bangladesh. Furthermore, as per new reports, ahead of the festival of Durga Puja, Hindus in Bangladesh have allegedly received anonymous letters threatening them to not celebrate the festival until they pay a ransom. Otherwise, they will face dire consequences. As per reports, some Hindu committees have already started cancelling Durga Puja celebratory events, while some have approached the police. Just take a moment here and imagine not being able to celebrate a festival. You see, the number of Hindus in Bangladesh is also not a small number. They represent nearly 8% of Bangladesh's population. That's more than 13 million people. Remember, police in most parts of the country did not return to work for nearly a month as they felt unsafe. Bangladesh police personnel had become constant targets of protesters and mobs as they attempted to quell the growing unrest against Sheikh Hasina. There were reports, in fact, of police stations being set on fire with policemen trapped inside. Policemen were also seen being openly lynched and trashed by mobs. So imagine this, the police was not feeling safe. What chance do the minorities have then? Now, this brings us back to the original question. Is it time for India to take a tougher stance against Bangladesh regarding its treatment against Hindus? India is well aware of this crisis. In the aftermath of these attacks, in fact, thousands of Hindus could be seen lining up at the India border, seeking refuge in the country. But they had to be turned away, as India reportedly is hoping to resolve this amicably and diplomatically with Bangladesh. During his Independence Day address to the country last month, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had expressed concern over the attacks on Hindus and other minorities there. A day later, the Indian Prime Minister put a post on social media stating that Muhammad Yunus, the interim leader of Bangladesh, had called him and assured that the country will protect and ensure security and safety of Hindus and all minorities living in the country. But why should India put trust as far as Yunus is concerned? Cases against Hindus and minorities continue to remain an issue, and more importantly, Yunus cannot just be trusted on face value. He has betrayed the faith of millions of Bangladeshis repeatedly. The interim government is still in power, and there are no signs of elections and return of democracy that he had promised. Our next story is about the hidden tragedy of the Ukraine war. The war between Russia and Ukraine has created a new crisis. It has triggered a significant rise in homelessness at both home and abroad. According to the charity DePaul International, war damage to 2 million homes has led to massive rise in rough sleepers and millions of refugees, a growing risk in Europe. Although the exact number of homeless people in Ukraine is not known, the report says that more than 3.5 million have been displaced internally since the conflict started in 2022. Not just that, many of the 6.2 million Ukrainian refugees across Europe are also at the risk of homelessness, and that number could rise. Every day, more and more people in Ukraine are losing their homes because of either Russian occupation or because of shelling or because they are close to the front line. According to the United Nations report in February, 2 million homes had been destroyed or damaged. Of the homeless people interviewed by DePaul, 69% were men and nearly half were between the ages of 18 and 45. According to the report, women and children receive more help in the form of public shelters, international aid programs, and refuge abroad. Moreover, male Ukrainian citizens between the ages of 18 and 60 are not allowed to leave Ukraine under wartime conscription laws. But the growing number of homeless people has strained the limited resources for the society's most vulnerable. There is only one government-administered homeless shelter in Ukraine, which is serving central Ukraine. Further, strict rules can often mean that single men or those with addiction problems will be turned away. And that's not even all. Some shelters have also been destroyed during the war. Temporary accommodation is available for people displaced by the war, but securing permanent housing poses significant challenges. And this means that even after the war is over, the problem of war-driven homelessness would persist for years. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to advance in eastern Ukraine to capture the strategically important city of Pokrovsk. The Russian advance has prompted the evacuation from Pokrovsk of about 20,000 people in just the past 1 month. And this could become a problem for Europe. In fact, on Sunday, the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, warned at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool that the challenges posed by the Ukraine war could deepen significantly over the next 2 years. In Hungary, the government recently ended housing assistance for thousands of Ukrainian refugees, designating certain western areas of Ukraine as safe to return despite the ongoing missile strikes by Russia. In the UK, over 9,000 Ukrainian refugee households have been put at the risk of homelessness due to a reduction in the number of hosts offering accommodation. You can't blame that on inadequate local authority support. According to reports across Europe, refugees face bureaucratic hurdles that prevent them from accessing protections and assistance guaranteed under EU laws. In Poland, which initially welcomed nearly 1 million Ukrainian refugees, public sentiment has shifted. It's due to concerns about social benefits. And what's more, this month the country called for an end to EU benefits for men of fighting age, saying it encouraged draft dodgers in Ukraine. And let's not forget the psychological toll of this uncertainty on the people. The charity organization that surveyed the homelessness crisis is urging a shift in how homeless and displaced populations are treated. It has emphasized the need for collaboration between the government, charities and other organizations to find permanent housing solutions and assist with other issues like medical support. As the war approaches its third year, support for the 6 million Ukrainians living as refugees abroad has also started dwindling. Now, a lot more Ukrainian refugees are at the risk of homelessness, with a major homelessness crisis at home and Russians advancing deeper into Ukraine. President Zelensky has urged allies to let Ukraine fire Western missiles, including long-range US ATACMS and British Storm Shadows. He basically wants his troops to be able to fire them into Russian territory and limit Russia's ability to launch attacks on Ukraine. In fact, Zelensky is expected to reiterate these pleas during his diplomatic visit to the US this week, when he will be meeting Joe Biden. Meanwhile, on the battleground, Russian forces have started storming the eastern Ukrainian town of Vuhledar, another stronghold that has resisted Russian attacks since the beginning of the war. Videos on Russian state media showed Vuhledar, which had a population of over 14,000 before the war, under heavy artillery and aerial bombardment. With allies becoming war-weary and Russians closing in, it looks like the clock is ticking on the Ukrainian forces. Big changes are on the horizon for Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence Agency, commonly known as the ISI. A new head is reportedly stepping into the role, that too at a time when the country is grappling with a whirlwind of political crisis, allegations of military interference and backdoor dealings. Pakistan has appointed Lieutenant General Muhammad Asim Malik as the new Director General of the ISI. He will reportedly replace Lieutenant General Nadeem Anjum on the 30th of September. But what does this leadership change really signify? More importantly, will it further complicate the precarious balance of power in Pakistan? Let's be clear, this is not just a routine change of command. It's a lot more than that. Lieutenant General Nadeem Anjum, the outgoing head, was no stranger to controversy. Appointed by former Prime Minister Imran Khan in 2021, Anjum's tenure was marked by the arrest of former ISI chief and Khan's ally, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid. And guess who Imran Khan blames for his current predicament behind bars? That's right, Anjum himself, along with the Pakistan Army. In fact, Khan claims they orchestrated his downfall. So is this transition simply a normal rotation of military personnel, or is it a part of a larger, more troubling pattern within Pakistan's security? Let's just focus on Malik, the new man in charge. Lieutenant General Muhammad Asim Malik's background may reveal a lot about what might be coming next for Pakistan's intelligence agency. He is currently serving as the Army's Adjutant General and Lieutenant General since 2021 and has experience leading an infantry brigade in the volatile Waziristan region and working in the Balochistan Infantry Division. However, he has never commanded a corps. A major stepping stone in the career, reportedly, of most generals who make it to the top roles. Malik is also highly academically qualified. He holds a Sword of Honor awarded to the top cadet at Pakistan Military Academy. He is a graduate of prestigious institutions like Fort Leavenworth in the United States and the Royal College of Defence Studies in London. He has even taught at Pakistan's National Defence University and the Command and Staff College, Quetta. So, will these qualifications translate into the kind of leadership needed for a role as politically charged as the ISI chief? Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The post of the ISI Director General is not just a military job. It sits at the heart of Pakistan's domestic politics, national security, foreign relations. Despite technically reporting to the Prime Minister, the real control experts believe comes from the Pakistan Army. And therein lies the problem. For over 77 years, the army has wielded enormous influence over Pakistan's political landscape, and the ISI is often the tool that's used to maintain that grip. With Malik's appointment, can we expect more of the same? Another military officer bound to the army's political agenda? Or will Malik take a different path, one that distances the ISI from the Pakistan's military political history? It's also worth noting that the process of appointing the ISI chief reportedly remains shrouded in secrecy. As per reports, the appointment is not laid out in Pakistan's constitution or the Army Act. Instead, it's an opaque process where the army chief presents 3 names to the Prime Minister, who then picks one. In theory, is the civilian government making the final call? Or in practice, is it the army that is pulling the strings? And let's not forget, the change comes on the heels of massive unrest in the country. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan, now in jail, has openly accused the army and the ISI of engineering his ouster, with political tensions running high and Khan supporters continuing to make their voice heard. Will Malik's appointment calm the storm, or will it pour more fuel to the fire? More importantly, will the ISI under his leadership continue to meddle in civilian politics as it has for decades, or will Malik take steps towards reforming the agency? And what about the international implications? You see, the ISI is a key player in Pakistan's foreign relations, especially in regards with the US, Afghanistan and India. So how will Malik's leadership affect these sensitive relationships? Can Malik bring any real change to the agency's global reputation, or will it continue to operate in the shadows as it always has? These are the tough questions that Pakistan faces as Lieutenant General Mohammad Asim Malik takes the reins of its most powerful and secretive agency. And only time will tell whether he can actually steer the ISI in a new direction, or is this just the latest chapter in Pakistan's long history of political dominance and political turmoil? Military dominance and political turmoil. The stakes could not be higher. The second phase of voting is scheduled to begin in Jammu and Kashmir on Wednesday. Among the 239 candidates for 26 assembly seats, veteran leaders across party lines will be contesting. Our special correspondent Idris Lone getting you this report from Srinagar. Take a look.
The second phase of the assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir will see some of the most prominent faces in fray. This includes former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, Apni Party Chief Altaf Bukhari, Congress State President Tariq Hamid Kara, Aga Saeed Muntazir Mehdi of the PDP, and Rabindra Raina, the state BJP President. In Kashmir Division, 15 assembly constituencies are up for election. In Jammu Division, 11 assembly constituencies are up for polls in the second phase. According to the latest electoral rolls, almost 2.6 million voters are eligible to cast their ballot in this phase. Of the total, more than 1.3 million are male voters and 1.26 million are female voters. 53 people are registered third gender voters. Underlining the significance of the role played by the youth of Jammu and Kashmir in strengthening the democracy, as many as 120,612 voters aged between 18 to 19 are eligible to vote in Phase 2 of the Assembly elections. The Election Commission of India has established 3,502 polling stations with 100% webcasting across 26 Assembly constituencies. These include 1,056 urban polling stations and 2,446 rural polling stations to enhance voter participation. 157 special polling stations have been established in second phase, including 26 polling booths managed by women as pink polling stations, 26 polling stations manned by specially abled persons, 26 polling stations manned by youth, 31 border polling stations, 26 green polling stations and 22 unique polling stations. The voting will take place from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time.
Security has been put on high alert ahead of the second phase of the Assembly elections, which are to be held on the 25th of September, which is tomorrow, across Jammu and Kashmir. There are over 25 lakh voters who will be deciding the fate of 239 candidates who are in the fray in 26 Assembly constituencies. The most important faces this time in the fray are the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Umar Abdullah, Apni Party Chief Altaf Bukhari, State President of the Congress Party, Tariq Hamid Karra, with the State President of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Ravindra Raina. The security remains one of the main concerns, as there is going to be polling in most of the volatile areas as well, including Srinagar's downtown area, with the areas very close to the line of control as well as international border. With video journalist Feroz Idris Loan for WION World is One.
It's a never-ending nightmare for girls and women in India that just continues to play on loop. This time, it's the story of a principal that has sent shockwaves across the country. The principal of a government-run primary school has been arrested for allegedly killing a 6-year-old girl student after she resisted his attempt to sexually molest her. Can you believe that? A 6-year-old girl. An innocent life has been snatched away. The police launched a probe after the child's body was found inside the school compound. As per the police, the school principal smothered the girl after she fended off his attempt to sexually molest her. This is infuriating, heartbreaking, and just appalling. Let me ask you this, as a girl or a woman or as parents of girls, do you not feel scared hearing about all of this? But why should we live in this constant fear? And it's not just about this one case, of course. Look at what happened in Badlapur. How can children not be safe in schools? They deserve to be protected, pampered, their childhood to be protected. But look at what happens. Let me tell you what happened in Badlapur, in the state of Maharashtra in India. The management of a school at Badlapur in the state's Thane district earlier suspended its principal and 2 staffers in connection with the alleged sexual abuse of 2 girls. The police arrested a school attendant at the school for allegedly abusing 2 girls studying in the kindergarten. As per the complaint, he abused the girls in the toilet of the school. Angry parents of the school children had to stage a blockade at the local railway station seeking stringent action against the accused. The girls had told their parents that the attendant touched them inappropriately, following which a complaint was filed and a case was registered against him under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. In fact, just 2 days ago in Uttar Pradesh, 2 minor boys allegedly gang raped a 7-year-old girl. The boys, aged around 7 to 8 years, allegedly lured the girl and raped her. This is deeply disturbing, and the fact is, what we are witnessing is extremely tragic and infuriating. Are women and girls not safe anywhere? A hospital, a school, out on the streets, anywhere? Also, here's an update. The Thane police have now registered a case of attempt to murder against the Badlapur sexual assault crime accused after he allegedly opened fire at the cops and also filed a case of his accidental death. He was being taken to Badlapur in Maharashtra's Thane district from the jail in Navi Mumbai on Monday evening, in connection with an FIR registered against him on the complaint of his former wife when the firing incident took place, which reportedly resulted in his death. A contractual sweeper at the school, he was accused of sexually assaulting the 2 minor girls, and he was arrested on the 17th of August, 5 days after he allegedly sexually abused the 2 girls in the school toilet. Shifting focus for now, the 2024 Asia Power Index has revealed a significant shift in regional dynamics. India has overtaken Japan to claim the 3rd place for the first time since the survey started in 2018. Released by Australia's Lowy Institute, the annual analysis ranks 27 countries based on their economic, defense, diplomatic, and other areas of influence. Japan, now in the 4th place, has seen its economic strength decline due to increased competition from South Korea, China, and Taiwan in key technological sectors. Meanwhile, India's ranking has surged owing to its bright growth outlook and robust economic indicators. The country has fared well, especially in future resources indicators. And by contrast, economic relationships continue to remain a critical point, a result of sitting outside the regional economic integration agenda. India recently rejected to be involved in the agenda, citing complications in a free trade agreement with China. The Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, has voiced strong concerns over China's opaque trade practices. Nevertheless, this exclusion has affected its overall score. In fact, the report also notes that India exerts comparatively less influence in the region despite having abundant resources. And this is indicated in the negative power gap score. This gap in 2024 was the largest since the inception of the Asia Power Index. Nevertheless, India is expected to solidify its lead against Japan, and this can be attributed to the contrasting economic outlook for both the countries. While India is expected to continue its upwards trajectory, Japan faces headwinds due to its falling demographics, and this will impact its rankings in times to come. Japan's fall in the rankings is also attributed to waning foreign investment in its tech sector, coupled with demographic challenges that have impacted productivity. While Japan's economic influence has dropped, it has gained recognition in the defense and diplomatic spheres. In 2024, Japan ranked 2nd globally for diplomatic influence, surpassing the US. This was driven by its active engagement with Southeast Asian nations and a strong partnership with the US in defense collaborations. While the US remains the most dominant power in the region, China is closing the gap in military capability. According to the report, China's military is now positioned to sustain prolonged conflict in the region, particularly as tensions rise over Taiwan. Despite its military gains, China's overall influence has stagnated. Japan and the US still hold strong positions in diplomatic and defense sectors. And this shift basically underscores the ongoing power rebalancing across Asia as India rises and Japan's economic influence weakens. And let's now break down the steps taken by the People's Bank of China and Chinese officials. What do the measures that have been taken for the economy mean, really? In a bold move, PBOC's governor, Pan Gongsheng, announced a series of significant monetary policy changes aimed at revitalizing the Chinese economy. Firstly, interest rates have been cut. The 7-day reverse repurchase rate was reduced from 1.7% to 1.5%. This is the rate at which banks can actually park their excess liquidity with the central bank. And this move will motivate banks to lend out to the real economy for better returns. Additionally, the bank's required reserve ratio was lowered by 0.5 percentage points. This is the portion of money banks need to park with the central bank out of the total outlay for lending. And this move will release about 1 trillion yuan into the economy. And this is the lowest level since 2018 and aims to boost liquidity in the Chinese market. The central bank also introduced a comprehensive package to support the struggling property market. This includes lowering mortgage rates for around $5.3 trillion in existing mortgages and reducing payment requirements for second home buyers from 25% to just 15%. To stabilize the Chinese stock market, the central bank also plans to inject at least 800 billion yuan or approximately $113 billion in liquidity. Officials are even considering to create a market stabilization fund. While these measures may seem promising, challenges remain. Economic growth has slowed significantly, with recent data showing the worst pace in 5 quarters. Experts are questioning whether these actions will actually be enough to stimulate consumer spending and combat long-term issues like deflation. Despite these monetary easings, many analysts believe that more aggressive fiscal measures are needed, especially as local governments face declining revenues. The government's growth target of around 5% this year is under pressure, raising concerns about whether these monetary policy changes can restore consumer confidence and drive spending. And following the announcements, China's benchmark CSI 300 index surged by as much as 4%, a hopeful sign for investors. However, it's crucial to note that the index is still down more than 40% from its peak in the year 2021. So what does this mean for the average Chinese citizen? With lower interest rates and reduced mortgage costs, buying a home may become more accessible for some, but persistent job insecurity and falling property prices raising concerns about long-term financial stability. Consumer confidence is crucial. If people remain hesitant to spend due to fears of layoffs or falling incomes, these monetary measures might not achieve the desired impact. And to summarize this, while the PBOC's recent policy shifts aim to support the economy, the path to recovery is still fraught with uncertainty. For many, the question remains, will these changes be enough to improve daily life and create a sustainable economy? That only time will tell. Bangladesh is set to receive 100% duty-free access to the Chinese market for all of its exports. This significant development comes as part of China's new trade policy aimed at boosting trade with least developed countries, including Bangladesh and 33 African countries. The move follows a series of trade concessions. China has already granted duty-free access to 98% of Bangladeshi products in 2022. With this full market access, Bangladesh aims to strengthen its trade presence in China, which is already its largest trading partner. The move is crucial for China as it navigates a tough trade landscape. Countries like US, India, even Europe, in fact, recently voiced concerns over China's trade practices and cheap influx of goods. The second largest economy is now looking to revive its trade ties with developing yet troubled economies. It recently announced debt waivers for Sri Lanka to the tune of $4.2 billion. The country also faces accusations of laying debt traps for underdeveloped economies. This comes as Bangladesh grapples with turbulent times. Political and social unrest halted businesses, especially the textile sector. The unrest has led to significant production losses in the Bangladesh garment sector, exceeding $100 million. The country is facing factory shutdowns and workers' dispute due to ongoing safety concerns. Workers in these factories failed to return after their lunch breaks, leading to shutdowns. The disruptions are particularly concerning as they coincide with the peak shipping months for Christmas orders, putting additional pressure on factories to resume production and meet international deadlines. The recent decision by China to open its markets to Bangladesh is set to boost the troubled trade sectors of Bangladesh. In the fiscal year 2022 to 23, China exported over $18.6 billion worth of goods to Bangladesh, while Bangladesh's exports to China stood at just $676 million. The new zero tariff policy is expected to bridge this trade imbalance by offering Bangladesh full duty-free access to the Chinese market. While Bangladesh's key exports, including leather goods, were already enjoying significant tariff reductions, the new policy will now cover all products under a tariff quota system, further boosting trade potential. And this zero tariff initiative aligns with the 49th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Bangladesh and China, established on the 1st of December 1975. Announced by Chinese President Xi Jinping during the China-Africa Summit, the policy aims to open China's markets wider to least developed countries. With this duty-free access, Bangladesh's exports are expected to rise, enhancing its overall trade footprint with China. California has become the latest American state to restrict smartphone use at school. And this move comes amid a growing consensus that excess smartphone usage can increase the risk of mental illness and impair learning. So how is California restricting smartphone usage exactly? California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new law that requires schools to limit or ban smartphone use. The bill requires school boards or other governing bodies to develop a policy to limit or prohibit student smartphone use in school campuses by the 1st of July 2026. Moreover, as per the new law, districts have to update their policies every 5 years. Governor Newsom said in a statement, and I'm quoting here, "We know that excessive smartphone use increases anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues, but we have the power to intervene. This new law will help students focus on academics, social development, and the world in front of them, not their screens when they are in school." In fact, several states, including Florida, Indiana, Delaware, already have laws in place that ban or restrict smartphone use in schools. The decision to ban or restrict smartphone use in school has received mixed reactions from parents and experts. Critics of phone restriction policies worry that school cell phone bans might make it harder for students to seek help in case of an emergency. Let's say in the case of a school shootout. Many argue that decisions on phone bans should be left up to individual districts or schools. Meanwhile, phone restriction supporters say it's better to have phones turned off in an active shooter situation so that they don't ring and reveal a student's location. We all heard about rags to riches stories. Now, this next one is about a person's journey from jail to ramp. Are you shocked? Well, that was the intention of 35-year-old Emma Coronel Aispuro. The wife of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera made a shocking return to public life with her Milan Fashion Week debut. The former beauty queen, who married the ruthless czar when she was just a teenager, donned a dramatic wedding dress as she continued her efforts to revamp her image from her cartel days. Coronel, who made a recent comeback on social media following her release from jail, documented her Milan debut online. In one of the videos, she was seen filming herself in the chair for hair and makeup. Her caption read, and I'm quoting, "I am a true believer that dreams do come true when you work hard and with your heart." While she may be enjoying her grand comeback, her catwalk has caused outrage on social media. Many have criticized the organizers for giving space to a woman with a criminal background. Prior to the event, a statement from designer April Black Diamond read, and I'm quoting, "Our upcoming fashion show will not focus solely on the dresses, but on the stories that bring them to life." As a designer, I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and fashion is the perfect platform to highlight transformation, strength, and resilience. That's why I made the bold decision to hire an extraordinary woman as my main model, a woman who, despite a past marked by controversy, has chosen to rewrite her future, quote unquote. Coronel was the Mexican drug lord's last romantic partner before he was arrested and extradited to the United States in January 2017. El Chapo was sentenced to life in prison in July 2019. The wife of the drug trafficker, who was then considered one of the most powerful people in the world, went to court in New York during the 11-week trial. In 2021, Coronel was sentenced to 3 years behind bars after pleading guilty to 3 counts of helping her husband's Mexico-based Sinaloa drug cartel. The charges were conspiracy to money laundering, distribution of illegal drugs, and engaging in financial dealings. She is now on supervised release for the next 4 years. With that, it's a wrap on this edition for now. Thanks very much for watching.